Every country on Earth is in debt. Not just poor nations, not weak economies. Everyone. The United States now owes more money than any country in human history, over $38 trillion. Europe carries more than $14 trillion. Japan, nearly $9 trillion. Even countries that sell oil, dominate trade, or control global manufacturing are buried under obligations. So here's the question no one ever answers. If everyone owes money, who exactly is getting paid? Because debt doesn't disappear. It always belongs to someone. And when you follow that trail long enough, you uncover something disturbing. The world doesn't owe money to a single enemy, nation, or billionaire. It owes it to a system, one designed to never be finished, never be settled, and never be paid off. This is the financial history most people never hear. And once you understand it, the word debt will never sound the same again. Debt is usually described as a problem, a burden, a failure of discipline. But in reality, debt is the architecture of modern civilization. Every war ever fought, every empire ever expanded, every economic boom and collapse has been built on this invisible framework of promises. And it didn't start in stock markets or central banks. It started on battlefields in 1694, England was at war with France and broke. Gold reserves were gone. Taxes weren't enough. So the crown made a deal with private merchants. Lend the government money now, and in return, the state would guarantee permanent interest payments backed by future taxes. To manage this arrangement, a new institution was created, the Bank of England. For the first time in history, a government could spend money it didn't yet have, legally, permanently, and at scale. In return, lenders didn't receive gold. They received something more powerful, a government promise that could be bought, sold, and traded. That promise became the first modern government bond, and it changed the world. Other nations copied the model. France adopted it. The Netherlands refined it. The newly independent United States used it to fund its revolution and, later, its expansion. Debt stopped being a sign of weakness. It became proof of power. If a government could borrow, it meant markets trusted it. And trust meant control. Empires no longer needed to conquer land for gold. They could extract interest instead. The battlefield moved from soil to spreadsheets. Fast forward to today. Global debt now exceeds $315 trillion, nearly 3 times the size of the entire world economy. And it keeps growing by roughly $1 trillion every 100 days. Every country borrows. Every bank lends. Every citizen, through taxes, savings, and pensions, becomes both a debtor and a creditor. Who hold the other end of this rope? Let's start with the most important case. The United States. America's debt isn't just national. It's global. Out of its $38 trillion total, about half is publicly held, meaning it's owned by investors rather than government departments. And here's the surprise. Nearly 2/3 of that debt is owned by Americans themselves. Banks, pension funds, mutual funds, insurance companies, and even the central bank. Only about 1/3 sits overseas. Japan holds roughly $1 trillion. China holds less than $800 billion. The rest is scattered across Europe and financial hubs. So when people say, America owes China, that's technically true, but deeply misleading. China owns only a tiny slice. Most of America's debt is owed to America. Here's how the loop works. The government issues bonds. Banks and funds buy them. The central bank often buys them back, creating new money in the process. Taxpayers pay interest. That interest flows into retirement accounts, savings funds, and financial institutions. The debt is real, but the creditor is mostly the mirror image of the same system. And this circular structure isn't unique to the United States. It's global. Japan lends to America. America lends to Europe through international institutions. Europe lends to developing nations. Those nations lend back by holding foreign reserves in Western bonds. Every country holds someone else's promise. It's a planetary game of hot potato, except the potato is made of IOUs. And the only rule is simple. Nobody stands up, because the moment confidence breaks, the game ends. Behind this system sits a fourth layer, more powerful than governments. The markets, pension funds, hedge funds, sovereign wealth funds, central banks managing tens of trillions in assets. They decide who borrows cheaply and who pays a premium just to survive. When confidence vanishes, currencies collapse, governments fall. Entire economies are restructured overnight. Elections choose leaders. Markets decide survival. And at the center of it all sits the modern high priest of debt, the central bank. Central banks don't just manage debt. They create it. Every time a central bank buys government bonds, it creates new money. One balance sheet's liability becomes another's asset. Every dollar in circulation represents debt somewhere else. There is no such thing as debt-free money. Every bill, every coin, every digital number carries an invisible promise. And for decades, this system has survived on one thing alone: belief. But when belief cracks, the creditors suddenly become visible. In Greece, debt panic triggered austerity, unemployment, and a lost generation. In Argentina, repeated defaults turned debt into a national curse. In Sri Lanka, foreign reserves ran dry, and the government collapsed. When the system breaks, institutions step in. Rescue packages arrive, but always with conditions: cuts, taxes, sacrifice. And yet, after every collapse, the same logic returns. Old debt is replaced with new debt. Promises are renamed. The machine restarts. Because modern debt was never designed to be paid off, governments don't plan to eliminate debt. Not now. Not ever. This isn't conspiracy. It's policy. Unlike households, governments refinance endlessly, issuing new bonds to pay old ones. Interest is the real product. Stability is the rent. The global economy depends on that rent the way a shark depends on movement. Stop rolling debt, and the system suffocates. That's why America will never clear its $38 trillion balance. Why Japan rolls debt exceeding 250% of GDP without panic. Why investors don't demand repayment. They demand continuation. Because government bonds aren't viewed as liabilities. They're the foundation of global finance. Banks rely on them. Pension funds depend on them. Central banks treat them as money. If governments paid everything back, the system would collapse. So they don't. They keep issuing more, carefully, rhythmically, like a heartbeat. And that's why promises to eliminate the national debt are illusions. The goal isn't zero debt. The goal is confidence. Because once belief fades, numbers stop matching. Interest rates spike. Currencies fall. And an economy built on rolling promises grinds to a halt. That's the real secret of sovereign debt. The plan was never to repay it. The plan was to keep everyone believing it could be. But belief isn't evenly distributed. Interest flows upward from taxpayers to institutions, from workers to investors. Debt doesn't just connect nations. It separates classes. And that's why global debt and global inequality rise together. The system rewards those who own promises and punishes those who service them. At the top, there's no single villain. Not China, not Wall Street, not the IMF. It's all of them. And all of us. Debt once meant bondage. Today it means balance. But balance only holds as long as confidence survives. Because in the end, debt is just a promise. And no promise lasts forever. This changed how you see the world.